Hi everybody, this is Shannon with CKC Patterns, and I am going to show you today how to make the Pintuck panels for Presley's Pintuck party dress and top. It's very easy to do. It's a little time consuming. You have to be very precise with your measurements and your stitching, but it really does come together quite easy. It's a lot easier than it looks in the pattern. So first off, we're going to cut out our panel piece, and I've got just an example one here. If you notice on the pattern pieces, I've got each edge is going to be labeled. So if you're doing a directional fabric, you want your directions to be going from top to bottom. You're going to want the edge that's labeled top trim edge. That's going to need to be at the top. Then you're going to have your bottom edge here and your side seam edge. That's just going to form like a little right angle right there. So you're just going to cut it out, and you make sure that your fabric is folded to where you're going to be cutting out two mirrored pieces. This is very, very important because you're going to need both of your pieces to be mirrored so that they sit correctly on the bodice once it's all finished. So we're just going to cut this out real quickly. Normally I have this pinned better, but I was just kind of being lazy today, and I hate pinning. Okay, so now we've got, we'll take our pins out real quick, and you'll be able to look at the fabric and see how it's mirrored with each other. And I'll kind of show you how it's going to overlap once it's all done. So we'll move our pattern piece off. So now you're going to have two pieces that are going to be mirrored. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. And you'll notice on your pattern pieces that you're going to have a shorter edge that's going to be straight. You're going to have a longer edge down here at the bottom. This is going to be the bottom that's going to sit on the bottom of your bodice. And then you're going to have a longer slanted edge. Okay, the slanted edge up here is what you're going to attach your trim, your piping, your lace. If you're not doing any trim, in the pattern it has you fold it over 1/4 of an inch and press. But all of this will sit on your bodice once we've got the Pintucks added, and it'll overlap slightly on the bottom edge. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, I've already got one cut out over here. I'm gonna walk around to my machine, and I'm sewing piping on this one. So again, you'll notice that my piping edge, or my piping, is going along the top trim edge of the pattern piece. And so we'll sit here and sew this really quickly. When you sew it, you can use your ruffled foot or your zipper foot. They also have a piping foot that you can also use. Honestly, I just use my regular foot. It still allows me to get really close. You want to get as close to this. I don't know if you can see. You're going to be getting as close to this piping and to the cording that's inside your piping. You need to get as close as possible to that. So you just sew, and you're just going to sew a straight stitch all the way down. And this is the same if you're doing lace too. You'll just attach your lace piece up here and sew it down. Almost done. I do recommend using plenty of pins when you're sewing on your piping or your lace. It just keeps it from shifting and helps it just to, because you have to make sure that you're getting it as straight as possible on there. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this to the ironing board, and what you'll do here is you're gonna fold, you'll wanna fold your, the top part of your piping or your lace, you're gonna fold it back, and you're gonna press this real nicely so it's nice and crisp, okay? We're gonna go walk over here and do that really quickly. So like I said, you just fold it over and you're gonna press real well. I do recommend using steam if possible. It just kind of helps that press it down and make it a little bit more crisp. So now you've got this. You're not gonna top stitch it yet, okay? You're just gonna fold it down and make that crease really nice and crisp. So now we are going to come over here and we're going to mark the lines for our Pintucks, for our little pleats. So you're gonna set this, if you have one of these cutting mats, it makes it a lot easier. We're going to make our first line 3/4 inches down from the top of our trim, okay? So your first line is gonna come down here. You're just gonna do 3/4 inches. You wanna make sure your lines are nice and crisp, nice and even. See, I messed up there, but it's okay. So the next line down, you're gonna measure 1 inch from this line, okay? So we're gonna do 1 inch down, and then measure down another inch. And you keep going all the way. Like I said, your first line is going to be 3/4 inches down from the trim. The rest of your lines are going to be 1 inch down on all of them. Okay, and you keep going. I've got one that I've already finished. So once you have all of your lines marked, you should have down here on the bottom, this bottom corner, you're going to have between 1 inch to 1.5 inches left over. Okay, you want to make sure that you leave that much space, so you're not going to come down here and mark 1 inch. You want to have at least 1 to 1.5 inches between the last line and the corner of your panel piece. Okay, so now we have to go back to the ironing board. There's a lot of walking back and forth in this. So starting from the bottom of your panel, you're going to fold right at that bottom mark that you made, and you're going to iron. And then you want to move it out of the way, and then go up to the next line, fold it over, and iron again. You want to make sure that you're not ironing over the crease that you just previously made, because it can kind of throw you off a little bit. But you're just going to continue doing this until you have ironed every single one. And make sure when you're folding it with wrong sides together. So the right side of your fabric is going to face up, and you're going to fold it so it's going to be wrong sides together. And you're going to be ironing on the right side of your fabric. Make sure you get the lines nice and crisp. You can see here how they're starting to fold up. That's what you want. We're going to keep going. It doesn't take long, and once you've done one and kind of seen how it comes together, they come together a lot faster after that. Like I said, it's all very simple. It looks complicated. It's really not. It's just mark, fold, iron, and then sew. The only thing is you have to make sure that your lines are very precise. You have to make sure that when you're sewing that your seams don't get off, because that can throw off the size of your panel, which then will cause it to not fit properly on the bodice. So it just takes a little extra time, but I promise you it's worth it in the end, because the finished product is absolutely adorable. So we're going to come in and finish our last couple of lines here, and then we will take it to the sewing machine, and we will sew our Pintucks. If you've never made Pintucks, they're extremely easy to make. It's really just straight stitches and it gives a really cute kind of pleated look to what you're making. I know Ruthie has some Pintucks on it, and those are really easy. So if you've done a Ruthie's before with the Pintucked bodice, this is the exact same technique. So now all of our pieces are ironed, and you can see that we've got our little, you know, folds all along each line that we've created. So now we're going to come back to the machine. And this is where you have to be extra careful to make sure that you're not getting off on your seam allowance. You're going to sew 1/4 inch. So we're going to start at the top this time. You're going to fold where that first crease is, and you're going to do 1/4 inch, and it's just a straight stitch. You want to make sure that you're not catching any of the previous folds or the trim in your stitching. So always just kind of check to make sure, you just want to make sure you're not, you know, catching anything underneath there. There's no real need to pin on this one, you know, in this part, because you're just following the guideline that you made when you creased the fabric with your iron. And depending on what size you're making, I'm making a size 6 right now, so I've got more pleats. The smaller sizes obviously don't have as many, and it goes by a little bit faster. So we're going to keep doing this. It really doesn't take very long. So just bear with me and let me get it finished, and then I can show you how it's supposed to lay and crisscross along the bodice. And again, I'm making sure that I don't have any of my previous Pintucks or any of my trim tucked into there, because I don't want it to get caught when I'm sewing. And I do recommend back stitching when you start and stop sewing, because you don't want it to unravel on you, because then that would be a lot of work that you just wasted. You'd have to repeat. So we're going to continue going down here. And again, just double checking I don't have anything tucked under. And that's the importance of making sure your lines are nice and crisp when you iron, because it makes it so much easier to sew this. You're not having to mess with your folds or anything. It just folds nicely for you, and you can use that as a guide for when you're sewing. I know some people just wait and trim their threads at the end, but it drives me nuts, so I have to do it when I start and stop each line. It's just a little pet peeve of mine. We are almost done. And if you ever get stuck on a section and you're really concerned and not sure if you're doing it right, or you're not understanding the instructions, you can always go to our pattern group page on Facebook and use the hashtag CKC help, and that kind of, if you know the designer, I'm the designer of this one, but if you know the designer of any other pattern that you're struggling with, you can always go in and tag them, or just do CKC help, and that helps us answer your questions a lot quickly, and we can help you a lot faster. We've got just a few more lines to go. And we will be done. Like I said, it looks a lot harder. It's really not. And it goes together fairly quickly, considering the amount of detail that it has once you're finished. couple of lines left here. Almost done. If you're worried that you're getting off on your seam allowance, or you're worried that your Pintucks may not be measuring up correctly, it's real easy just to grab a ruler and just measure from your stitching to the fold. And if all of yours, if each Pintuck measures a 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, then you are good to go. If you get off, if you get bigger than a 1/4 inch, then it's going to make your panel too small for the bodice, and so it's not going to overlap properly. If you are going bigger than a 1/4 inch, or sorry, if you're going smaller than a 1/4 inch, then it's going to make it too big for the bodice. If you're going bigger than a 1/4 inch, if you get off that way, then it makes it way too big for your bodice piece. All right, now we are done. So we're gonna go back to our ironing board one more time. You're gonna open it up. It's gonna look really kind of long and skinny and small and funky at first. So we're gonna start ironing. You wanna iron all of your pleats going down. And I find it's easy to kind of pull this bottom corner here. Just kind of stretches the pleats out. And this is again where you want to use steam because it just makes those pleats fold nicely. I'm going to come over here. You can see how they're all facing down now. Okay, your trim is going to be up here. Your pleats are going to be facing down. So let's go back over to our cutting board, our cutting mat. Sorry, I'm not in the kitchen. So what you're going to do now, you're going to have, it might be easier if you come over on this side. Okay, you're going to have this piece, and then you're going to have another piece that matches it, or that mirrors it. Now you'll notice that you've got one long piece right here, and then you've got your shorter piece right here. The same with this side. You're going to have your longer piece and then your shorter piece. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your pattern and you're going, you see the corner of your pattern right here? Or sorry, right here. On this one, we're going to start on this side. So we're going to flip it and we're going to line the corner up with the bottom of our piece. So the fold line of your bodice pattern is going to be in the center. This is going to go along your arm and the side seam, and this is going to go around the bottom. And I like to just pop a couple pins in there just to kind of hold it in place. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut all the way up here, okay, and then you're going to cut all the way down here, but you're not going to stop at the pattern. You're going to continue all the way off of the fabric. And you can cut off this little curve here on your side seam as well, just where it's going up to the arm. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing over here. It would help if I turn it around a little bit. There we go. I'm going to cut off all the way to the end of our fabric. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing with our other side. So that's one side of your panel done. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to do the same thing, but since it's the opposite side and it's mirrored from this piece, you're going to want to flip your pattern piece over. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. You're gonna line it up right here. And just put a couple of pins in there to keep it from wiggling around on you when you're cutting. And because of the direction of the panels, you're gonna have one side that's gonna be a little bit longer of an overlap, and this one's not gonna have so much of an overlap on this side, okay? That's entirely normal. It was designed to do like that. Cut this little piece out right here. And then cut. And again, make sure you're cutting, you're not stopping at the pattern, you're going all the way off the edge of the fabric. Okay. And then finally, you're almost done. We're going to take our bodice. You'll have your bodice already cut out. So what you're going to do is you're going to take, you'll see how this edge and this edge are both bottom edges, and you're going to see how one is shorter than the other. You want to start with the shorter piece first, and you're going to lay it right down on your bodice like this. Then you're going to take your longer piece and you're going to lay it on the opposite side, and they're going to overlap. So that longer piece is now going to overlap on the shorter piece right here. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to do a basting stitch right here all the way down and across. Same thing right here, all the way down and across. This top edge, the top trim edge, you're going to go ahead and do a stay stitch, and that will secure it to the center part of your bodice, but it will also top stitch the pieces on as well. So you'll do a stay stitch right here and a stay stitch right here. And that's all you need to do. It's extremely easy, but the results are fantastic looking. I hope y'all enjoy, and I can't wait to see what y'all create.